Ladies and gentlemen, today we have a very interesting video to get into because we have some Switch 2 leaks, updates, rumors, all that good stuff. But on top of that, I have a theory that a white Nintendo Switch 2 is getting revealed this year, maybe even soon. And I think I have quite a bit of evidence for that, so we're going to go over that as well. Let's go and get right into this video. Now, before we get into the video, did you know when the Switch 2 Joy-Cons snap onto the Switch 2, we know the sound effect, right? It's just like a snap sound. But there's a new update or an update when you get the Switch 2 and it has a different sound effect, and that sound effect has leaked. This is what it sounds like. Weird, I know. Now, before we get into the video, just remember I'm giving away a Switch 2 in July, another Switch 2 near the holidays, and every Saturday I'm giving away eShop gift cards right here on my channel. Just make sure you're liking the videos, commenting on them, a subscriber, follow my social media, just really support the community, and I will support you guys back. That way, as the channel grows, I can always give back to the people who help the channel grow. So this first Switch 2 update we're going to talk about is very interesting to me. And maybe because I'm so naive, right? I really don't understand how the gaming industry works. And the only thing that I guess I do understand a little bit is like game development, just because we hear all the news about games being developed. But really, hardware is a thing where it's like, what the hell is going on here, right? When a console comes out, is that when you start working on a new console? Or maybe at like that midway point, like when there's a pro version of a console, is that like putting a bow on that generation and then you start working on the next console? I'm always curious how this works. Well, today we have an insight about how the Switch 2 was developed and like the whole time frame. So Nintendo confirmed that formal hardware development on the Switch 2 began in 2019, only 2 years after the launch of the original Switch. And this information comes from Nintendo's lawsuit against Genki. We will talk about that a little later in the video, so we will circle back to that. But just 2 years after the Switch came out, so 2019, the Switch OLED hadn't came out, the Switch Lite, I don't think it came out yet, and they were already working on the Nintendo Switch 2. So it's so crazy to me. It's like, here's our console, we're just getting going. 2 years in, that's so early in the console. We have 2 more iterations of this console, but we're already designing the successor to this console. So yeah, like I said, I'm probably naive about how this works, but I just find that very interesting. Now this month, I'm almost certain we're getting a new Nintendo Direct. We kind of have to, I feel like, especially with all the leaks we've been getting about games that are coming day one that haven't been announced yet. I think it just makes sense, right? Now, the company I expected to be at the Nintendo Switch 2 presentation was Microsoft. They've said they want to work with Nintendo, that they have a bunch of ideas, and especially all the companies underneath them now. But they weren't there, and I find that so strange. So I think they're definitely going to be at this next Nintendo Direct. And today we have a very exciting and interesting and weird leak about Microsoft for the Switch 2. So this post is coming from Nash Weedle. Bombshell. Microsoft no longer thinks only about Xbox, which I don't know if that's the bombshell part, because yeah, man, we see that. You know, now that I'm thinking, we haven't even gotten to this leak yet. Well, I'm getting ahead of myself here. But I'm thinking about that whole price hike and how that might play into all this. Although they will not be exclusive to the Switch 2, they plan to release games targeted at Nintendo users. At the moment, there are 1 game in development, 1 game in pre-production. It seems Craig Duncan has something to do with this. I talk a lot about Microsoft and Xbox doing a lot of dumbass stuff. I think this makes a lot of sense, especially with them raising the price of Xbox consoles. It's like, nobody's gonna buy that. What about games? You know what I mean? Well, we'll support that, especially if we have games going to other consoles. And then if you come to Microsoft and you're like, why is this not exclusive? And it's like, well, our consoles are too expensive because of the tariffs right now. We gotta make money somehow, so that's why these games are going to other consoles. But really, they're making these games targeted at other consoles, which I actually think is a very smart idea. Very, very smart. So I think this is really cool. Do I think any of this news will come out in a Nintendo Direct this month? If there is a Direct, which I'm pretty sure there will be. I don't. But this is something I think we can see later on this year. And yeah, weird, but that's just where gaming is in 2025. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the real reason why I wanted to make this video. I have a theory that a white Nintendo Switch 2 is coming sooner than later. I want to say this year, but even though I can't get the time frame down, I still think this thing is real 100%. and I have some evidence, or multiple points of evidence, right? So the first thing I want to talk about is this Genki lawsuit. Nintendo is suing this accessory manufacturer because they showed off a mock-up of the Switch 2 before reveal, maybe like a month before, maybe even the same month. And then something else I didn't know is the same day Nintendo held the Switch 2 Direct, Genki had a Genki Direct the same day, I guess at the same time, or maybe a couple hours later, but what a dumbass thing to do. I didn't even know this. This is kind of straight up comedy right here. But the whole reason why I think this ties into everything I'm about to talk about is why did Nintendo go after them specifically? Because I can't think off the top of my head, but there was like a few other accessory manufacturers doing the same exact thing weeks before the Switch 2 was officially revealed in January. And they were showing off mock-ups. They were even doing pre-orders for the cases. Like real legit companies. I cannot think of the name of any of them right now. So why go after them? Well, I think it's because of the specific Switch 2 mock-up they used. This was the mock-up that they showed off, and as you can see, it's white. And you may think, well, you know, maybe white is cheaper to produce for 3D printing, because obviously this is 3D printed. I just think they got information from whoever they got it from, and they thought, well, it's a white console, right? Now, if we go back a few months before this, the very first real look we ever got at the Switch 2 came out of China, from a Chinese YouTuber. I'll be playing the video clip right now. She had her hands on a Switch 2 that was obviously 3D printed, but she said she had had all this information for months directly from the manufacturer, and she 3D printed it 1-to-1. And once the Switch 2 came out, we knew everything that she showed off was 100% correct, except the color of the console. Again, the 3D printed model she had was white, and they even said in the video, the consoles that were being manufactured were white consoles. Now, the first official look we got at the Switch 2, before it was revealed in January, was coming from someone else who was in manufacturing, and they were showing off the actual console and the actual dock. If you're into all this gaming news stuff, you'll remember their name was Next Handheld. And they were showing off everything, like the real console, the real Joy-Cons, the real dock, real everything. And it was official. It was legit. Like, it even had the serial numbers on the Joy-Cons. So we know they had their hands on the real Switch 2 months before it was revealed. And if we go back, they even said themselves. One of the tidbits shared by Next Handheld was a Nintendo Switch 2 will supposedly come in 3 different color schemes. One will be the gray system with black buttons, which is the Switch 2 that we're actually getting, similar to the first version of the Nintendo Switch that launched in 2017. The second will be white, like the Nintendo Switch OLED model. And finally, a third will be a special edition Nintendo Switch 2 console themed after a particular game. So this third special edition, I don't know if they mean like an actual special edition or just an actual different bundle. And we know we are getting the Mario Kart Switch 2 bundle. So that leaves us missing the white Switch 2. Now, if we even go back before this to, when is this? Maybe September. So this was published September 18, 2024, and this comes from a Fan Rewards post. And again, this is coming from manufacturing out of China. And every single thing this person said was 100% true. This was the first time somebody officially said the console was going to be called the Nintendo Switch 2 and that it had a 2 on the back, or the Nintendo Switch 2 logo was on the back. So it says a new forum post from an apparent factory working in China indicates the Switch successor has just started to ramp up production. And this is in September, and we heard that production was happening in September from like legit sources, maybe Bloomberg or something. For one thing, they claim the console will simply be called the Nintendo Switch 2 with at least 1-2 logo on the body of the console. And we know this is 100% true. To make this visually easier, it apparently shipped with black and white Joy-Con controllers. So I'm thinking these manufacturers were making black Joy-Cons and white Joy-Cons, and in their head they're just probably like, well, it's gonna have black and white Joy-Cons. And I remember when this information first came out, it was saying that the console is black and white. But what I think got lost in translation is they were saying the consoles aren't black and white, and there's white Joy-Cons and black Joy-Cons. So we know the black Switch 2 happened. Well, there's white Joy-Cons being made. It was confirmed from these manufacturers. So we see the black Switch 2. All the parts were made for the white Switch 2. So again, I think we're getting a white Nintendo Switch 2. Now, the reason why I don't think Nintendo has announced this console yet, the first thing they have to do is get the Switch OLED out of there. So once the Switch 2 is officially released in June, I think we're finally going to get that price drop for the Switch OLED and pretty much all the Switch consoles. They got to get that white Switch OLED off the shelves. So there is no confusion for people going out to buy a new console. If you have a white Switch OLED and a white Switch 2, older people, casual gamers, whatever, they're just going to see the console and be like, oh, I want that white one, right? They got to get that white Switch OLED out of there. Once that Switch OLED is gone, out of stock, out of mind, out of sight, all that good stuff, I think they finally announced the white Switch 2. And again, I think it probably, if it comes out this year, I could see it coming out in October, right before the holidays. Big restock. We'll have the black consoles, we'll have the white consoles, we'll have the Mario Kart bundles, maybe, probably not the Mario Kart bundles, but some kind of other bundle, and it'll probably come out along with a new game. But this is my theory, but I feel good about this. So if this happens, remember, you heard this information here first, or I publicly put this theory out here first, and I'm stamping it. I really think it could happen. But ladies and gentlemen, what do you think about this? Because your opinion matters most. So in the comments below, I would love to hear from you guys. If you made it to this part of the video, hit a like and subscribe. Follow your boy on Twitter and Instagram. And we're going to do some really cool stuff for this next generation of Nintendo consoles. I have some really cool ideas. So I hope you join this community. And you guys know me. I will see you very soon with a new video. Peace out.